Alright guys, welcome to the Dulles Town Center. Let's go inside and let's go check it out. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Dulles Town Center. We are in the Dulles, Sterling area of Virginia, right near the Dulles International Airport. And this is a mall I wanted to get to for a long time. Ever since 2021, I've wanted to see this beautiful gem ever since Wally put up his video of here. And this has been a bucket list. I've been to a lot of malls since then, but this has always been a bucket list for me. The architecture in here, the aesthetics, really, as I mentioned, I want to be here for a long time. And this past August, as I was going down to the Washington, D.C. area for a personal trip, I was like, I have to come here. And it kind of worked out because I filmed other malls in this area, and you're stay tuned for that throughout the next couple weeks and a couple months here. But this was the #1 mall. That's why I wanted to make this a premiere for you all. I know I don't do premieres that often, but this is a long video. Not quite as long as another one we're going to do later, but still a long video. And just with the pure architecture and aesthetics of this place, nothing that I filmed on this trip, in my eyes, beats this mall. There's a reason why I spent 3 hours here. And not just, recording this video and taking pictures, but just roaming the halls and enjoying it. And just taking it all in. As who knows if I'll make it back here. Hopefully, and I will. I mean, it's not super far for me to get down to the DC area, but we'll see. Only time will tell. And what I think amazes me most about this place is that the amount of work to put into this for a newer mall. As many of you know from the history of this channel, I'm usually into like the older 70s and late 60s, 80s place. This place wasn't built until the late 1990s officially. And despite all that, Lerner Enterprise put quite work into this place, and they did a great job with this place. It's too bad that they don't own it anymore, but if they would, I would expect them to continue to do well. Now, the history on this mall is in as early as 1987, Loudoun County officials approved the jurisdiction for the first regional shopping mall to be developed with a joint venture between Lerner Enterprise and Cigna, if I said that right. The mall was originally planned to be named the Windmill Regional Shopping Center, but they scrapped those and they changed the name to what is now the Dulles Town Center. There were so many issues with this place, due to the economic issues, as this is, even though it's Virginia, it's right in the heart of the D.C. area, and there was a major recession in the early 1990s, so that kept pushing this back and pushing it back and pushing it back. It was eventually scheduled to begin construction 6 years after it was planned in the spring of 1994, with a planned opening date of 1996, but that never came to fruition. As in 1996, they finally, after almost a decade, they would finally break ground on this amazing place, and they would have a target completion date of spring 1998. So just imagine that, this place took a year and a half. There's some sports stadiums that take that long, and this is a mall. So they clearly knew what they were doing, and they wanted to take their time to make this right, and they did. But delays further pushed the opening back to November of 1998 with its first 2 anchor stores, which were original stores, which were the Hexes, which you mentioned in the Macy's that you saw me film a video, and the Lord & Taylor, which you saw that I filmed, the video there as well. And they opened on November 18th, 1998. Now, in early 1999, the Dulles Town Center added 2 more anchors as JCPenney and Sears opened up. And the official grand opening for the mall, the ribbon cutting and all, was on August 12th of 1999. And in its beginning years, from the beginning, this place did quite well, as the Northern Virginia area at this time was really starting to grow in population as people that worked in the D.C. area and Arlington started to really move in here and settled well. I mentioned it's 2 miles away from the airport, so that really did help it out and, increase the viewership. And Lerner Enterprise saw this and they wanted to expand this. And they added another wing in 2002, which was anchored by the Nordstrom, as well as a 2-level access corridors to the various stores. So that little wing we saw was that little walled off area down by Sears. That was the former Nordstrom, and we'll get into why they left. Around the time of the Nordstrom wing, there's a plan to build a Edwards Cinema. It was proposed for an adjacent vacant anchor pad, but an LA Fitness had opened up on this site in 2004, followed by the Dick's Sporting Goods, which we'll see later on, opened up in 2006. And then and there was an office building that was attached to the Sears wing during this period, but that would be demolished and that would become a Regal Cinema, which is still there to this day, even with all the issues of Regal, and it is beautiful. I got a nice shot that you'll see later on of that Regal. It is quite nice. I mean Regal in general builds nice theaters. And overall, as we made it through the 2008 recession, there was no major changes to this place. There was no, issues really, as this place didn't suffer the same fate as many malls across the country. And the department stores that were here, none of them really struggled. The only thing that was a change was, of course, in 2006, the Hexas store was rebranded to Macy's as part of the May Federated buyout during this time. But as I said, despite, just besides that, there was no changes to the anchors, even with all the issues. There was not a lot of, national change during this time that closed as well. And as we got into the early 2010s and into the mid-2010s, there was still no major changes. This place would continue to thrive, would continue to see millions of shoppers every year. Now, the first hit that this mall took was on June 30th, 2017. Nordstrom announced the closure of their anchor pad, as they claimed that this location was not doing well for their financial needs. Although Nordstrom's kind of had a weird history of closing down randomly and including in some really thriving malls. So I don't know what their thinking is. I don't know, maybe they didn't do well here because this is kind of like a middle of the road place. This isn't like a super high end place. And later on this trip, and we'll see a couple high end malls that have those kind of stores. But so maybe that's why. But it's still surprising for how great this mall is and how busy it is. And I know, throughout this video, it doesn't seem like it's that busy. And that's part of the reason why it also took 3 hours, because I try my best. I really do in any of these videos to not include people into my shots. I just think that my goal is not to show the people and whatever. Yes, I know sometimes you can't avoid it, but I try to pick times when the people were not there to get my shots, so I constantly stop throughout, and that's why it doesn't seem that busy. But trust me, this place is busy when I was here. There would be no other changes, Of course, in early 2020, the mall was closed for a few months due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But despite that, and I will mention, other parts of the country started to really suffer because of the offices closed and people doing virtual. And that, I wondered how they would do here because the DC area has a lot of, those businesses and office buildings. And many of those people chose to just work from home and be virtual and not go out. But despite that, this place, and it kept chugging along. Although, in August of 2020, Lord & Taylor announced they'd be closing, as eventually all the Lord & Taylor stores would be closing there in early 2021. But this was the last location to close in Virginia, so that is kind of noticeable in its own right. And this location, didn't end up making it. Of course, the whole company went out. And you may have wondered why I've not mentioned about Sears yet. Sears, has been closing down stores for 10, 15 years, even 20 years. But this location held on, despite all the other locations across the state closing down. But eventually, on February 2nd, 2021, Sears would announce their plan to close. As part of a plan to close a few dozen stores at this time, or what was left of Sears. But this was the last location to close in the entire state of Virginia. It was a nice location. And as I mentioned before, if you do want to see a tour of that store, a few people have filmed it, including Wally. So sadly, I never made it here. This is quite far from me, but oh wow. That is that. But the fact that they managed to stay here the longest, maybe this store did well. Now, I know with Sears, it's a little bit complicated because Eddie was involved. But we're not talking about Sears in this video, but still, it's a unique fact that this was the last one to make it in the entire state of Virginia. In November 2020, Centennial, the mall development firm, announced it was planning an expansion with a new retail space, a hotel apartments, a high-end grocery retailer, and the introduction of a green space. Now, the one thing I couldn't find on here is when Lerner Enterprise sold this mall. I think they kind of just sold it quietly as they've been kind of downsizing for years, and now their former founder passed away a couple years ago. So, but then in December 2023, Servivus Shimonelli, the CEO of Virginia Property Investments, purchased the mall for $46 million. And that is, a noticeable price too. Because you've been seeing malls sold across the country, in around 2023, 2022, and they're selling for barely at $10 million. This place selling for $46 million proves the true value of this property and just how many stores, tenants, and shoppers it has, and the area around it. So I think that was very noticeable to point out, because if you look at any articles in many malls now, you're seeing most of them sell for a couple $1 million, maybe $10 million. This one sold for 46, so that was noticeable. In 2023, the Lord & Taylor Ingram building, it was subdivided, and Compost Furniture opened a store on the upper level, and Black Friday Daily Deals opened a discount store on the lower level in 2024. And of course, you can go back on this channel, and we did film those two particular things, the Lord & Taylor, including the furniture store, which is now closing again. Well, it was in August, and now it's now gone. And I don't know why they closed. I don't know if they just wanted to move out or move to a new area, or they had an issue with the leasing, as most likely Hudson's Bay probably owns that building. I cannot confirm that, but the Sears Anchor building, it was subdivided as they were doing work on it when I was there. But then in late 2025, after I was here, the Sky Zone Trampoline Park opened in the upper levels, and 8-10 billiards and bowling opened up on the lower level. So, despite the issues with some of the anchors, there's only one that's empty, and that's the former Nordstrom. I don't know if they have any concrete or plans for that or whatever. But other than that, I mean, the Sears getting filled was huge, as that's a massive spot, and the Lord & Taylor being half filled, and I know the other thing pulled out. But rumblings are that the whole building's going to get refilled again by a single tenant. I've not heard any official confirmation for that. But if any of you can heard something, feel free to comment down below. As this mall, also one of the unique features about this place is the huge food court here, with many traditional dining options, both chain and local. If you come here or you leave here and you're still hungry, I don't know what to say. I guess you're a really picky eater, because there's so many options. I didn't eat here because the time I was here I wasn't hungry, but I could have easily found a meal I enjoyed. The food court here is very unique, in that cool carousel you'll see later on. For those of you who know me, anytime that a mall has a carousel in it, that just adds an extra charm. This mall already had quite a lot, but to add that carousel, really made it super unique. This place, I also felt relatively safe. Now, there was a shooting incident in 2023 as a social media content creator. Gee, that kind of a little bit, interesting. I'm not quite that famous, but they were shot in the stomach here, and the suspect was arrested, but he was found not guilty of aggravated wounding. I don't know why he wasn't found guilty. It seems like it's pretty obvious what happened. I don't know, the whole details from what I was reading on this incident. It was kind of sad, but sometimes people get triggered by social media. But overall, I feel this mall is a safe mall. They did have quite a few security guards here, although we did have an incident when I was there, ironically, that when I was filming, there was some dude that was not a mall security guard, and I confirmed it because I asked the real mall security guards, who was trying to act like he was a security guard and tried to tell me to not take pictures. I didn't stop, and I knew he was fake. He wasn't dressed in any sort of way to be security. I've been doing this for way too long. For that guy that was there that was trying to stop me, you didn't stop me, and I filmed this entire mall and got a whole picture album, and I don't know what your problem was. But enough of that. In any event here, I'm going to stop labbing, as I've spent 14 minutes here labbing about the history and my feelings on this mall. But I hope you all do enjoy the rest of this video. I thank you all for joining the premiere, and I hope you all have enjoyed this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. It will be up here on my channel. If you all do, you know the drill. Make sure to hit like, comment, and subscribe for this channel for more content. I've still got lots of videos from this Virginia trip, as well as some holiday videos. And then get into 2026. We're going to keep going. This channel's not stopping. I got tons of content for you. But in any event, as I mentioned before, although I am going to sign off, hope you all enjoy the rest of the video, and I will talk to you all later. And bye-bye, everybody.
nights are bright with you. Everything feels right. Neon lights make the nights so bright with you. Everything feels right. Make the night so bright with you. Everything feels right. Neon lights make the night so bright with you. Everything feels right. Neon lights make the night so bright with you. Everything